Good afternoon, gentlemen. This lecture is going to continue where we left off on day 4 in our notes. As you recall from last class, we completed the average atomic mass calculation, and then I said we're going to take a break because I had a lab set up. I did edit the lab to be a little bit better, mainly because I will not be there. I am planning on being back next week. On Tuesday and Wednesday, obviously, but please bear with me during this lecture, and hopefully you kind of understand how your periodic table is set up. So starting off, when we look at our periodic table of elements, it is broken down where to the left of the stair step you're dealing with metals, and to the right of the stair step you're dealing with non-metals. Some of the metals do have names that are associated with them. You will be exploring this today in the activity. So right now, you don't need to know what the types of metals are, the types of non-metals are, but you will be getting a chance to color in your periodic table and explore it after this lecture. So what does it mean to be periodic? So the periodic comes from that name is when something is happening on a regular basis or in a cycle. So when we talk about the periodic table, there's actually trends that are occurring in said periodic table that we will be exploring later in this unit. But that is where the periodic table gets its name. As I move left to right, top to bottom, we can observe these different trends. Mendeleev was the first one to actually organize the periodic table. He was a Russian chemist in 1869, and he actually ordered the periodic table according to atomic mass, or my decimals on my periodic table. Now, this is obviously not how we currently have it organized, but at the time, whenever new elements were coming out, there was no way for them to organize them, and so he was the first one to do that. Something fun, like fact, I mean, kind of a sad fact, honestly, about Mendeleev is, like I said, he was a Russian chemist, but he was from a poor farming family that was in the rural part of Russia. His mother noticed how intelligent he was and wanted him to become a scholar. And so because she saw how intelligent he was, they made a trip from their rural town in Russia, like middle of nowhere, to St. Petersburg. And in St. Petersburg, they had universities. They traveled for months, and this is in the 1800s. So they didn't have, hotels like we would have today, and they didn't have cars. So they were traveling on horseback. They would camp in between where they were staying, and they traveled for months to get to their location. Now, when they finally got there, his mother said, went up to the university and said, "This is my son. He's extremely intelligent. Please let him in your university." Mendeleev took all the tests, and then this is kind of where the sad part comes in. So he gets into the university, and then his mother drops dead. Mainly because I wonder how much of that was like, I want my son to do this, and she was able to get him. And so due to this kind of sad thing that happened, Mendeleev really focused on his studies, and he found a passion in chemistry. Now, what's unique about when he organized the periodic table, like I said, all these elements were coming out, but there was also a lot of missing elements at the time. And so he was the first one to leave spaces for new elements, and then they were later correctly predicted. So again, this is not currently how our table is organized. However, he was the first one to do so. Now, Henry Moseley, he was actually the one to organize our current model. And remember, our current model is organized by the increasing atomic number, or our blue number on the periodic table. So it is not with the mass number. So that's our current periodic table. Henry Moseley was, again, he was very intelligent. He very sadly passed away at a young age. He was fighting in, I believe, World War I at the time. A lot of scientists feel like, he went to serve for his country, that because I believe it was England, and he worked with Rutherford. He was the one to discover the protons, and he was also the one that identified nucleus is in the middle of the atom. It's mainly empty space. That a lot of scientists, after he passed away, wonder how much more we could have known with him, because he was just a very intelligent man that passed away. But him and Mendeleev are kind of considered like the fathers of the modern periodic table, because without them and their hard work on working on the organization, then we would not have the periodic table that we know today. So when we talk about the periodic table, when we're looking at the horizontal rows, so the left to right of my periodic table, these are called periods, whereas the top to bottom are my groups, and that's my vertical column. So it's important to know that if I say, what period is this element in, we're looking at what row is it in, and what group am I in, we're looking at those vertical columns. If it helps you, one way to kind of think about this is think about your schedule at Creighton Prep. If I look at my schedule, my first block, second block, third block, fourth block of the day are always going to be left to right, and then my A-Day, B-Day, A-Day, B-Day are going to be those groups, because those are the days, the group that I take those classes. So kind of think of your schedule when you're thinking about periods versus groups. Like I said earlier, when we have our stair-step line, which is already outlined on your periodic table, you can also see it on our periodic table in the classroom. It separates our metals and our non-metals. Now notice along my stair-step line, I do have what are called metalloids. Let's kind of talk about these special groups. You will have an opportunity to label these on your periodic table later, but this is available in the slides if you'd like to go back. So looking at my special groups, group number 1 is called the alkali metals, and group number 2 is called the alkali earth metals. Transition metals are going to be in that very big block. And then when you get kind of to group 13 through 16, we do not have a specific name because it is a combination of metals, metalloids, and nonmetals. However, group 17 is called halogens, and group 18 is called noble gases. The bottom 2 rows, or periods, that are found underneath the periodic table are called lanthanide metals and actinide metals. These ones actually fit into the periodic table in the transition metals, and we'll kind of, again, explore this in the activity we're doing later. Now, remember we talked about this, our periods are our horizontal groups and the family or group is our vertical group. The stair-step line kind of acts as an equator because it separates our metals, our nonmetals, and metalloids. It's important to note that metals are the left of the stairs and it's the majority of the elements. About 80% of the periodic table is actually composed of metals. Whereas properties of these metals include that they are good conductors, they have a luster or shininess to them, they are ductile, that means that they can be flattened and stretched into wires. They are malleable, meaning that they are bendable. And then most of our metals are actually solid at room temperature, with an exception of mercury. If you look at your periodic table, the colors that you have on there will denote the state of matter. And if you notice, mercury, because we had someone point this out earlier, is blue outlined, and that is because it is a liquid at room temperature. Nonmetals are going to be to the right of the stair steps, and the properties of a nonmetal are going to be opposite of metals. They're actually going to be poor conductors, where most of them are gases at room temp. There are some solids, and there's one liquid. If you look at it, you can find which one is the blue lettering. So take a moment to look at your periodic table. And this element is bromine. It's also important to note that most of our nonmetals are brittle. Now, metalloids are on the stair step, and these are actually a mixture of metal and nonmetal properties. So depending on the metalloid that you're looking at, you're going to see a different kind of property. So some of them might have more metal properties, some of them might have more nonmetals, but it just kind of depends on the actual element that you're looking at to see those properties. For you do not need to know the specifics for each specific metalloid, but I do expect that on a test, if I were to say, hey, select all that apply, that could be properties of metals, that you are able to identify them. Now, like I said, groups on the periodic table are elements in the same group. So because they're groups, those are the vertical columns, they will actually have similar characteristics with each other. Think about a group on the periodic table is kind of like a family, which is the other name that we use. And this is because a lot of those ones in groups are going to have the same color and appearance, so maybe they have the same or similar malleability and luster. Most of them are going to have the same state of matter at room temperature, again with the exception of mercury. And they're going to have the same reactivity with other chemicals. If it helps you remember, like I said, groups are also called families. So think about it this way. I have a little brother. We both have brown hair, which is a similar characteristic, but I have brown eyes and he has blue eyes. So, not every element in the same group is going to be exactly the same, but they're going to have the majority of the same characteristics that allowed us to organize them that way. So, again, here's just your summary. Your metalloids include bromine, silicon, germanium, arsenic, antimony, and tellurium. However, it is important to note, and someone did point this out previously, hydrogen is actually a nonmetal. Now, it is found to the right or the left of the stair step, and that is because when we get into this in a later lecture, the amount of valence electrons is what determines its placement on the periodic table. So, as of right now, it is important to note that hydrogen, is the only exception where it is a nonmetal found to the left of the stair step. But again, we're going to put a pin in that and we're going to explain why that is later. So that is it of the lecture. I want to walk through the activity you're going to be completing. So if you go under Canvas, you are going to go to the Intro to the Periodic Table activity. And when you open this up, you are going to be filling out this worksheet, but you do need to have access to this website. This website is called ptable.com. It is a really great thing, but what I love about it is that when you click on anything, so for example, I kind of hover over boron, I click on it, I can now go here and it will give me a bunch of information on boron. I can kind of see the melting point, boiling point, things like that give me some information about this element. What's also nice is you can come here and you can see what are my liquids, what are my gases. Unknown is typically radioactive. They don't exist long enough for us to really know. And solids. What you're going to do is you are going to click on the word metals. And so we're going to click right here, metals. And then, kind of hover. And you're going to find a color using your colored pencils. They will be available in the front of the room, and you are going to color in, picking out your shade of your metals. You'll do the same, so you'll do metalloids, nonmetals, and then you'll click on the H box. Now the H box is for gas. You're going to outline these elements so that way you just have a kind of nice color-coded periodic table to quickly look at to identify your metals, your nonmetals, metalloids, your states of matter, things like that. After you are done with that, this rest is a scavenger hunt. You may work with a partner of your choosing, or you may work by yourself, and you are going to go through the instructions. So using your periodic table is your roadmap. You're going to go and say, okay, I have an atomic mass of 108. Who am I? So kind of using this as an example, I would go to my periodic table and I go, okay, looking for my decimal, which one is closest to 108? So I look at my decimals and I go, oh, silver has a mass of 107.87. This element must be silver. So I'll write Ag or silver. And you're just going to continue doing that. The purpose of this activity is to label your periodic table, but also to get you familiar with finding the information on it. So this will be your homework. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is the other piece of homework that you are going to have. So let me get back to our assignment. Next class, we are going to have what is called the speed quiz. And the speed quiz is going to be about the first 86 elements. And what you are going to do is you are going to use this Quizlet, but excuse me, I also have a practice test for you to take. So you're going to go through, and what you need to know is you don't need to know atomic number, you do not need to know the mass, but if I say zinc, you're going to go, okay, it is this element on the periodic table, and then you'll continue. So you're going to memorize the name and the symbol for the elements. Now I want to show you what the practice quiz looks like. So if you go to Canvas, you're going to have the practice speed quiz. Now mine is going to be a little bit different when I open it, obviously because I have, teaching privileges on this, so it's going to be a little bit different, while it loads. So let me hit student view so you can kind of see what to expect. But you will have unlimited attempts on this quiz. So you can take it as many times as you want, and the format of this quiz is set up the same as what you will see on our quiz for the next class. Now, this will be the only quiz that you are not going to see, there we go, in preview, see as, like, with your notes. This is a closed note quiz. But you will have 5 minutes, and what it will do is it'll say, okay, identify 10. I'm going to go on my periodic table, and the way that this works out is you are going to tap on what element you think it is. Now, let's say that you tapped the wrong thing. If you tap the wrong thing, you cannot change your answer. So the way you do this is you scroll to the bottom and you will have a clear my selection. And you can tap again on what you believe the correct one is. You will have this quiz available to you, and again, it will randomize each of your selections, so as you go through, you're able to see what style of questions. This one here is going to be matching, so here I have Cl, I'm going to go here. I have all these elements to pick from. Cl is chlorine, Hg is mercury. What is nice is you can type, so if you're looking at your periodic table kind of to begin while you're studying, and you're like, I don't have time to like sit here and scroll, you do have access to typing. But you will do that, and what's nice is, I'm going to kind of skip ahead, so that way you kind of see. But when you submit, obviously I did not answer everything, it will give you immediate feedback. So you're going to be able to see, okay, so out of the 22, I got 6 points. All right, 10, correct answer, and then what's nice is if I were to select the wrong one, that kind of here, I want to show you, it will highlight that box for you. Now notice the entire box is highlighted, so you do want to make sure you are hitting in the box. But again, this is something that you can study with. So your 2 homework assignments are to complete the Intro to Periodic Table lab activity, and then you are going to complete the practice speed quiz. Next class we will have the speed quiz, and then I will introduce Bohr models for you. And then obviously, please make sure that you are passively working on the project that is due on the 29th. Other than that, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to email me, but that is it of the lecture. Make sure you fill out your guided notes, and you can go back through this lecture if you needed to, if you missed anything. Bye.